Yeah, g'day, Bush Camping Tools here today. Well, I want to dispel what I think is a bit of a myth on the internet. And we've all seen the test where many people take a knife out for a knife test and they're cutting, bazillions of bits of paper, A4 sheets of paper or cardboard or all sorts of rope and stuff like that. And they're using the results of these tests to say whether the knife steel is any good or not. Okay, well, I'm going to say why I don't believe these are such great tests. First of all, paper is, as many of you may know, is extremely abrasive. Now, why is paper abrasive? Heck, it's made from, trees and wood. It shouldn't be abrasive, but it is because in the manufacturing of paper, they use things what are known as fillers. And a lot of these fillers are based on clay particles, on clays. And yep, clays are dirt, right? Essentially, it's soil, and they're very abrasive particles. So industrial knife blades that have to cut paper all the time, a lot of effort is put into the design and the alloys and the heat treatment and the types of steels to be able to cut paper products all the time without the knife getting maximum use before it has to be resharpened. All right. So that's really abrasive. You might think, yeah, that's a good test because it tests how long the edge holding capability. And the same with ropes. Many plastics also use fillers in the plastics, and they're also abrasive. So why do I think these are not so great tests? Well, to be honest, they are tests which are more like laboratory tests because they can be made repeatable if the knife is put in a machine. And in actual fact, that's how knife tests are done in industry. They're put in a machine so it moves backwards and forwards so you know exactly the same amount of pressure, the same number of strokes on similar materials, and you can judge how well the edge is holding up. Of course, if you do it by hand, somebody sitting there like that, if I give you the knife and Joe blogs the knife over there or Jane blogs the knife over there, you're going to get different results because of the variation there with that. But out here in the wilds like this, you're not cutting bits of paper, you're cutting materials which have a big variation in how abrasive, whether or not they're abrasive or not, or whether they're greatly abrasive on the knife edge. And I would say to you that at some point you're going to have to not shy away from sharpening your knife. You will need to sharpen that knife. So even if the knife has got a hardness of HRC 60 and above, which is very hard and it should hold that edge for a long time, at some point you will need to sharpen it. And if you shy away from that thinking, well, I'm only going to go for some kind of super steel that's got a HRC of 62 or 63 or even 60 and above, at some point that will get dull. So whilst paper cutting and rope cutting at home in the garage on the desktop can give some indication of how long a knife edge may remain sharp for, it doesn't really extrapolate to out in the bush like this here. And the reason it doesn't extrapolate out into the bush like this here for the use of a knife and how long it can stay sharp for is because the variability is great out here with the materials that you're cutting. And I would say that that's one of the reasons why when I demonstrate a knife to you on this channel, I'm trying to show you the kinds of things you would do with a knife on a trip out, and whether or not that knife at the end of those tests is still sharp or not. And if it's still sharp, in most of these videos I'm showing you, I have to say most of the knives I've shown you on here, they're still sharp, and they're still very sharp after generalist tests like that in what you would do on a hiking or a camping trip or 2-3 days out in the wilds. And that would give you a good indication of how many times you can take this thing out, how useful it is, and that you don't have to sharpen it, every 3 days, or every day rather, or even every 5 minutes. But if you're cutting lots of paper and you say, well, I can cut, 2 reams of A4 paper and all this sailing rope and, 10,000 pound, marine hawser, stuff like that, hawser, it really, I don't believe it shows you, how good the knife really is whatsoever. So that's why I would say to you, don't get hung up on paper cutting tests and cardboard cutting tests and rope cutting tests, because those sorts of tests are not truly representative of the usefulness of a knife out in the wilds. They're just not. It's like taking the laboratory test and trying to say, to extrapolate those laboratory results. I mean, they're not laboratory results unless I see somebody put the knife into a mechanical arm and apply a set force and great repeatability in the results. But those results do not extrapolate out here into the wild wilds for the use of a knife and how long it's going to stay sharp for. And it's certainly, I don't believe, you know, the number of pieces of paper you can cut is a good judge of the usefulness, because it doesn't take into account the comfort of the knife, the weight of the knife, the length of the knife. Can you actually do anything with the knife? I can take an industrial paper cutting blade and I can do all those things with it, but it will be useless to you out here. Okay, so yeah, just my rant for the week of bush camping tools here. Thanks for watching and enjoying the scenery here too. It's very beautiful at this time of year. All right, catch you later.